All right, so I know that kind of at the beginning of this project, I was talking to you a lot about dry programming and CI/CD pipelines and promised you GitHub actions and all that. So now we actually get to start taking a look at that part of the project. So again, we've got some stuff that's in our hub, but we want to really build this out into our dev, QA, and prod environment. I do want to call this out. Just it's really important for you to realize this. The meta store within Unity Catalog is limited to one space now, to one basically one meta store per region. So if you are familiar at all with just like the general like background of uh, Hadoop and Spark and all that, you understand that we can have multiple Hive databases, but the thing that's really unique about Unity Catalog is um, it's the data governance component of it all. So when we're using Databricks or basically when we're using Unity Catalog for this, then we really can only have the one metastore. And so that's kind of why we're focusing on that hub at first. Now, we haven't really talked much about the metastore within our code yet. We have a storage account for it, but we haven't really touched on it, and we won't focus on that just yet. What we will focus on though is the CI/CD portion of building out our dev, QA, and production workspaces. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's head over to our code. We're away from the hub now, and we're now going to the spoke section of this. So let's take a look first at our dev plans. So we've got these different environments, and we're going to focus on our dev plan. So for that, I need to cd back just a bit, and we're going to cd into our dev plan. Do a quick ls. So we've got a main file here. That's what we really want to focus on. And I also want to just go ahead and make sure that now I'm grabbing my dev subscription. Okay. So for my dev plan, we're going to go to my main file, and as you recall, I'm going to be pointing to a module from this. I'm setting the environmental variable as dev, and I've also got this other thing that's kind of cool. It's this Databricks propagation file. It's a JSON file, and so I'm going to be pulling that in as a local. And so it's just pointing to, this time instead of an address space JSON file, it's my propagation file. So we'll start with as a simple file, and then we'll extend it out further on as we add more groups and permissions. So I just want you to see how this starts with one small group first, and then we're going to go from there. So first things first, we're going to hit this main file. It's going to point to our spoke module. So remember, the spoke in this case is going to go through dev, QA, and prod, but in this case, you're just seeing it for dev. So we go to our modules, and then we go to our spoke folder, and we don't have any real resources here right now. It's just some data blocks. The data blocks are grabbing our group for us dynamically. It's doing a configuration, basically grabbing our client config so that it can reach into the key vault, and then it's also going to dynamically grab our virtual network by the environmental variable. And so we're just kind of referencing the resource group of dev for this, and then using that same environmental that same environment as our variable for the name. So it's dev vnet. So like I said, this isn't creating anything yet, so I'm going to pull some stuff out of my inactive folder. So the first thing that we're going to create, almost identical to before, is the Databricks workspace. So again, this is going to be another VNet injected workspace. We'll take a quick peek at that. It should look very similar to what we saw in that last video, so won't really go through that too much. Almost the exact same deal with the network, with the difference being that we're in a new subscription this time, and we have some new IP addresses that we're looking at. Those IP addresses have already been accounted for though in our address-based JSON file. So if you're not familiar with that, go back and take a look at one of the previous videos. So we've kind of got what we need for Databricks workspaces. Additionally, what we're going to do is create some storage accounts for our lake. So this is where things get a little bit different. So let's bring in our storage accounts. So we've got kind of our main lake storage account. This is going to be, well, I'll talk to you in a little bit about our for each blocks, but we're going to give it a name. Kind of same deal as before. It's going to have that hierarchical namespacing enabled. And then we're also going to create some containers. So I want to create a catalogs container, and this is going to be where we'll store our actual like databases or our catalogs in the future. And then I'm also creating kind of like a landing container, which is just like a place to dump stuff that's not necessarily all that structured. So less structured, more structured. That's kind of the goal here. So we've kind of got that lake. We also need to think about permissions. So if we've got these lakes, how does Databricks actually connect to it? So we're going to set up some Databricks external connectors. So it's an access connector and then a role assignment with it. So what we're going to do is we'll give it a name and then put it in the resource group. This is going to create a system assigned identity. For the role assignment then for external storage, what we're going to do is we're going to grab each one of those storage accounts, and we're going to basically grab it by its ID. We're going to give it the storage blob data contributor, and then for the principal ID, this is going to be what we extract from this that we just created. Those are most of the important pieces. Another thing is, while we're in here, I'm just going to go ahead and give a key vault to this account. That way, when that way my users can interact with the key vault if they want to deal with secrets. Now, the way that you set permissions, do it however you see fit. But for me, what I'm going to do is kind of create a key vault for each group in this resource propagation list. And again, you're seeing this kind of for each starting to pop into the code here, and you're seeing these keys because what we're doing is we're gonna iterate through dev, QA, and prod. So that's going to be kind of our first loop. But then our second loop is going to be that we're going to iterate through each group in here. So I'm setting this up with the default group, which is essentially for the data engineers because we really need this. But then if we want to do this for, we'll say, a test group, A, test group B, then we're going to basically do like a secondary loop through all of those as well. So we're going to extend upon this. So you'll see how easily this scales out. And then the last thing is I'm just going to go ahead and bring in a data factory. For this data factory, we're going to bring this in as well. We're going to set up a data factory itself. It has a system assigned identity. I am giving it a name somewhat dynamically. And then for this, we're going to have some role assignments as well so that it can reach into our ADLS Gen 2 accounts. And so what we're going to do is kind of loop through that propagation list, and then we're going to scope it out to each lake, giving it that storage blob data contributor role. So we've got it for the lake there. Once we've got the role assignment set up, we're also going to set up a link service for it. And also set up a self-hosted integration runtime that if we want to download that and install that on-prem, we have that ability as well. So this is kind of like a fun add-on. You can skip over that for now since this is mainly focused on Databricks. But with that said, we're going to say Terraform apply, and fingers crossed this thing will work. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply this from our local up to our dev subscription, and then if we like it, we're going to go ahead and do a PR. So yeah, it looks like it's going to build 26 resources. I don't see it destroying anything. This is all dev, so I'm okay with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to run this. I'm going to push pause here in just a minute because I think it's going to take a few minutes to build up. But we're going to deploy this. It's going to build it into dev, and then we're going to do a PR, approve it, and then it's going to build through our CI/CD pipeline automatically into QA and prod. So with that said, let's pause the video and we'll come back when it's ready to go. All right, we're back. So looks like everything's deployed. Let's hop on over real quick. When I say everything, I just mean everything in the dev subscription. So just refresh that. Kind of same deal. We've got a dev Databricks Workspace here. I did change the naming of it. At first it was going to be Databricks Workspace Dev, but I decided to pull the environment up front just so it's easier to see later on. And if we launch the workspace, let's see if it lets me in here. I just want to make sure that this looks good. Yeah, I'm happy enough with this. This looks fine. So you can see now I've got a couple of workspaces here. So that looked good. Let's go ahead and clear this out. We're gonna drop down to the root of this. So let's see, clear that out. Get status. So right now I'm working on my working branch. So we're gonna do a git add, and I'm just gonna add everything. We're gonna do a git commit. We're gonna say just begin rebuilding everything. So this is going to be kind of like our first pipeline run. So I just committed that, and we're going to say git push. And push this up to my working branch. Okay. So hop on over here to GitHub, and I have let's just X out of some of this stuff. All right, so I've just got my little thing. I'm just calling it PR Planet over here. So this is ready for a pull request where it just automatically goes from my working branch into my dev. So all that stuff that that I just worked on and is different. So let's just create a pull request. Let's see, we'll create it. We can check the files that have changed, but it's going to be a lot, and just take my word for it. So what we're going to do is just merge this in. We're going to confirm the merge. All right, so that's merged successfully into dev. Now what? Well, I've also got this action city over here, and what this is doing is kicking off a CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions. So we built our code up locally, and that's where you're going to do a lot of your work from. So you're going to test it locally and write it up against your dev subscription. And so once I've got it up in dev and I like it, I'm just going to put that kind of like single check in place. And so what we're doing now is a QA plan. So the QA plan is what we were doing before with that Terraform apply, except for instead of apply, it's just running a Terraform plan. So if it doesn't look like anything's going to fail, then it just automatically moves on to the next step, which is the QA apply. So what this is doing is this is going to apply those Terraform actions against my QA subscription. Assuming that this goes well and that it builds successfully, then what it's going to do is it's going to take my dev branch and it's going to automatically merge that into my QA branch. That goes well. Then it does the prod plan, the prod apply, and then the prod merge. So what I'm going to do is just pause this. I'm going to let this kind of build out, and then I'm going to step back in and kind of show you guys that everything is built up. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, so if you've never worked on one of these pipelines before, looks like it's working successfully. So we've made it through QA. So QA has planned, it has applied, it's merged, and now it's making its way into prod. So prod's going to run for a few more minutes, and then it'll be good. But let's just hop into the console, the UI real quick again. So I'm going to go to my dashboard. It takes a few minutes for these things to show up in the dashboard, even if you refresh it. So I'm just going to pop in here, and we can see kind of the same deal. Like everything has been built up here. So back to the actions. What are we looking at? Well, we have a QA plan. And so what this does is it just kind of sets up the job. It does the AZCLI login, which again, this is passwordless authentication. It's using my OICD connector, OIDC. Always get a little bit dyslexic with that. It's an open identity connector. So I think that's OIDC. You got your Azure CLI login. It runs some Azure commands. Let's see what those are. Yeah, it's just running our subscription. So not doing too much there. It's got the HashiCorp set up. It runs a Terraform plan. So, and this is kind of where it shows us kind of the output of everything that it's planning to do. And what would happen is if there was a failure in the plan, then our pipeline would stop. Let's go back into this. So it would fail right here. If this failed, then it would stop. But because it did not fail, then what we do is a Terraform auto apply here, and this just goes ahead and it just applies that same plan that we just looked at. And then once it's good to go, I'm just doing a merge here. So depending on your budget and depending on your preferences, you can set up these runners slightly differently. For me, I'm kind of doing my first check locally, and then kind of doing my PR is kind of my gate. And so once it gets in, then it just runs through these environments. And so there's, I think, a different subscription plan for GitHub that you pay. I think I pay like, a few bucks a year for this subscription plan. So I get these free runners. If I wanted to, I think I could pay a little bit more to get my environments more locked down. So I might have to like check off on each one of these environments, but this works good enough for me. I'm pretty happy with this. If I want to, I don't have to use CI/CD pipelines at all. But anyway, this is just kind of me rambling about the project while it's building out prod. I guess I could show you, and I probably should do a video on this later, but just kind of what the OICD provider even looks like. So if I go into, we'll go into my dev, or let's go into my QA. We go to my QA, and I've got my setup folder here. So remember, there's not a whole lot in here. It's really just, this is kind of that dry program. It's really just kind of pointing to that spoke. But in my setup file, I do have a kind of a main thing that I built. And so the main file is just kind of holding my subscription, my prefix for this, because it's the data platform. My environment is QA. My main provider is the Azure Resource Manager. I think that's what the RM stands for. That I'm kind of locking it down to the subscription ID here. Note that this subscription ID is also saved, I believe, as a variable, as a secret within GitHub. Let's see, I've got my resource group here, my storage account. So this is just kind of where my backend state file lives. And then it's down here actually where I start creating my OIDC application. So within Azure, we have these app registrations that are what we use for service principals. So for this one, I've got my app registration that's going to work with my GitHub account. So basically, I've got my GitHub account, the repo that I'm working off of, which is a private repo. I've got my application that is going to be kind of converted into a service principal. And then I've got my role that I am applying to it for the very specific subscription, which again, I'm pulling that variable out from the secret. So locally it's stored as an environment variable here, and then in GitHub it's stored as a secret. And then what I'm doing is some various federated identity credentials here based on the branches and the plans. So I've kind of got like my plan apply and my merge steps. So yeah, that's kind of all that's going on there. And like I said, this thing's just about done. So we're gonna pause the video for just a minute, and I will come back and show you this when it is completed. All right, so we're back. And if we look at the timing of these, the plans look like they took about 30 seconds, 6-7 minutes, a few seconds, a few seconds, and then this last one looks like it took 8 minutes. So all in all, it took about 10 minutes per environment to build out. So not bad for a CI/CD pipeline to build out an entire network and VNet injected Databricks Workspace across multiple environments. So again, coding it up is a little bit challenging, but once the code's ready, it doesn't take that long to deploy. So we'll pop on over here to the dashboard one more time. We'll take a look at the prod resources over here, and like I said, we've got the the Prod Databricks workspace, and pretty much everything looks like it's here. So I am good to go on that. We're gonna stop this video now, and when we pick back up, we're gonna start looking at actually setting up the Metastore and assigning that out to the workspaces, and then bringing in some users and groups and starting to assign permissions so that it actually has kind of the look and feel of a governed data lake. So stay tuned.